Welcome to DevOps Copenhagen and to my presentation about how we went to DevOps in Telia, Finland. Or did we? Let's see. Few things about me. I'm a tester. I cannot code. I test by hand, or more precisely, I test by brain. And that's will influence my presentation today, some bit, but try to bear with me. I've been working quite a long time. I have had steady work relationship since I was 13 years old, and then I studied something, but always working in between. In testing, I have been roughly 14 years, and in DevOps, 2 or 3 years. Currently, I work in many places, like I'm one of the co-founders in Software Testing Finland and Happy Monkey, a consulting company, and I work as a DevOps diplomat in Telia, Finland. And what that means, you will hear more about next. Marko talked about future, but I talk about history. We go way back into the beginning of this millennium and do a life of a boss. There are good bosses, bad bosses. Does anyone know where this picture is from? Yeah, office. Yeah. So there's a definition of a bad boss, but still close to his team and close to his people. We're able to lead, even though he led badly, but still everyone was close and they all were a team. They managed to do things. Also in Telia, we had huge software centers and so on. We had 200-300 developers and so on. And then came the big layoffs. Everyone was outsourced. And the world went into this. Contracts became in between the people who do the work and bosses. So they lost all ability to lead people. So everything went to contract. It became a wall between these people. What it means in practice, you get only the parts that are above the water when you deal with contracts. All this was lost in the beginning of this millennium in Telia. When you do work through contracts, you try to explain stuff that cannot be explained. You try to throw stuff over the wall and get back something, and then it doesn't work. Then you fix and throw it over the wall, and then you bounce it over the wall, and it creates tension. It's like a rubber band that builds and builds and builds. And this is where we are now. This is, do you know the Dudesons in Finland? They are pretty much the same as the Jackass in States. This is the CEO of the largest commercial TV network in Finland, and he participated in this gag where they did the rubber band trick. So this has quite a bit of a symbolism on what Telia suffers now. So, how we try to fix it? How we prevent this rubber band from going off to our bosses' faces? This is one attempt, not a good one. I don't slander too much of this because I know that you had a presentation before about how this saves the world. But in our environment, the results are quite obvious. It did this. Everything that we accomplished using Scaled Agile framework is this. And it goes without saying that it creates a lot of problems, and we need to think something else. It might work in a other kind of environment. I go into a model which explains this, that it could work in another context, but in Telia it didn't work. So we need to think bigger. Has anyone read Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the book? Yeah, then some nodding, yeah. So the idea is that you have fragile entities that break under change. Then there are robust that withstand the change, and then there are entities that evolve from change. And as you see, there's DevOps. And there are some practices that we embrace when we try to progress DevOps. For instance, when we start to question ITIL, which is pretty much in every place nowadays, we get a lot of enemies, so we need to make our case really well. But when we create results, then they will start slowly moving into this domain. But what the hell is DevOps? We went to beer in the Warbigs last night, and we had philosophical discussions on what is DevOps. We didn't grow that much smarter on that. And usually when I don't know the meaning of something, I go into the meaning of words. There's apparently science for that also. But I went to the dictionary. And DevOps, this resonates with me. And when we mix these things, it starts to look like DevOps. For me, this is a personal opinion. There's an arrow forward. We create a forward motion. We develop something. And then there's a circular motion that we take care of the something we developed. And it goes around and around. And if you've been to Wikipedia, you see this. It's a loop. And the first thing we did to realize this was this. We put tools on that. Efficode built us a pipeline. Then we customized it a bit, and then we started calling it our DevOps pipeline. And these tools are represented in that toolbox now. We first consolidated it so that everyone should use, for instance, Zabbix to monitor something, or Git to control versions, or so on. But then we realized that there were so many different teams and capabilities to use these tools that we could consolidate only some bits of it, because we have to have a purpose on having a pipeline like this. We need to have visibility on how things are going. So we asked everyone to go to Deveo, which is nowadays Helix Team Hub, and Jenkins. And we tapped those. So we have visibility on those, and then we have visibility on everything that happens in our development. Of course, we may use some of these tools, we may use other options. There are different kinds of ways to orchestrate containers and so on. So we let people to experiment with those and come up with their own solutions. But we consolidate only Deveo and Jenkins. Everything else is pretty much free to use. Yeah, in short, that was our pipeline. But DevOps is more than just a pipeline. This is also stolen from Efficode, and customized a bit. For instance, I wrote the testing part, new. There's exploratory testing, represented more, ATDD, BDD, and so on. It's not complete. Maturity models never are. They present some goals, and we try to pursue them. We create motion towards something better. And each step should create value, not just the goals, but each step. And that is our aspiration on this. And it gives people something to aim for, because you cannot quite lead if you don't have goals. One of the maturity issues is that even though some teams are able to build containers, orchestrate them, some talk even from unikernels and such, science fiction even, and yet they don't know how to do version control. This is analysis done to 13 teams in one of our programs, and how well they are doing version control, whether they know about version numbering. How many know how to use Git? Quite many, half. How many of you know about, for instance, feature toggling? Fewer hands. Semantic versioning. Even fewer hands. These are all things that if you are a developer, you might want to check them out. Okay, semantic versionings and so on, they are rhetorics, but still we had to figure out whether they are using CI, when I ask about what kind of unit testing do you have, and then when they say that well, something it has this and this coverage, but no assertions. So they create unit testing, but they don't actually test anything. So we need to create visibility on that. And also that some of our vendors were creating their own COTS software with our money, because we didn't have visibility on their version control. So that's pretty immoral. And we need to hammer down hard on those vendors with this kind of analysis. Effigo is not one of them. Yeah, so you have to be assertive on some occasions also. Not just diplomat, but enforcer also. Has anyone heard about this book? Yay! I didn't expect anyone to hear about this, because this is from testing domain. Very dear to us testers. It helps us to build a DevOps team from testing. First, there's the most important person in the world, for me, tester. And when you are in a waterfall project, you have these silos of different roles, and they have their own responsibilities and so on, and they try to create something. When you go to Agile, they become a team. Those are team responsibilities. It's not given that someone has to know testing or business or design, but team has to know about that. And when you go to DevOps team, you have more. That's how I coach Telia teams to build DevOps teams. Have these areas in your team, and you might do quite well. And this awful thing, Cynefin. It creates understanding on how organizations could move into DevOps. You cannot have best practices on all places. When you try to sell methodologies and such, you try to wrap them up in a nice bubble and sell them. That's a best practice. But it only works in obvious domain where everything, all variables are known. But then when you move to other domains, they become loosely. For instance, in chaotic environments, you have patient lying on your table, bleeding to death, and you have to stop the bleeding in order to stabilize the situation and move to more matured domain. And for instance, when you start a project in a chaotic situation, no one doesn't know anything about it. You start to figure out stuff, test, and so on, move there, and then you get something ready, and then it breaks, back to chaos. And then and then you swirl around and so on. But you have to know where you are in order to select your tools and methods to fit the occasion. Yeah, in short, that was Cynefin. There's a lot. I, for instance, have given presentation about life and Cynefin. You are born here, you mature and grow, and when you are old, everything is obvious, and then you die. That's why the cliff is there. You are driven into chaos, like a salmon run. Salmon swim to the upper streams of the river, they lay their eggs, and then they die. That's a grim future, but still, this explains that too. I wonder if I have plenty of time. This is one of the ways to convince people to go into DevOps. There's a lot of reasons why we should go into DevOps, but lead time is one of them. Need emergence. It doesn't mean that you put something on your Jira backlog. No. When customer wants something, needs something, then the timer begins for lead time. It tick-tock, and then you realize that the customer has a need. You start to work on it. Then you start the process time, you start to measure, you start to set KPIs and everything, and you look all smart when you measure process time. But that's not enough. Marko told about the 0-day deployment, and this is what's the whole point of it. When you close the gap between the need emerges and when it's fulfilled, then get more stuff out. Has anyone read Puppet Lab's State of DevOps reports? There's some stats on those. In 2016, there was, between the high performance and low performance, there was 2,500 times difference. And a year later, there wasn't that much. So the low performance are obviously getting their shit together. So world is changing. But why do we need to run so fast? Because of this. Only 1/3 of well-designed, well-researched, and so on, features deliver value. Every feature is like a lottery ticket. You put it out, and perhaps it might win something. But when you put a lot of those tickets out there, some of them will win. That's the whole idea of releasing quickly. And somehow Telia people seem to buy this. It goes really well. When I ask for money and so on, I just, look, oh, shut up and take my money. It works, in Telia context, really well. This works also from the same Puppet reports. Reasons why we need to go into DevOps. The dearest. All these soft values that you put something that needs to be done by machines to be done by machines, and the rest is done by human beings. And higher employee engagement. For instance, we have this problem of Telia not getting enough good people to its ranks. People who with competence in sysadmin or DevOps or programming or such. Every time one of those comes to Telia, I give it a year or so until he or she leaves. So there's a high turnover with technically proficient people because of the contract issue. And we need to do something about it. There's one even better convincing argument on the behalf of DevOps. Return of investment is 12 times in this. I couldn't get that with cryptocurrency. So it's really awesome. And these kind of calculations, they are, if you want to have proper set of convincing calculations and business cases, go to this research. There's a lot of convincing stuff there. Yeah, but we are still in this situation. But we are closely, all the time, step by step, getting closer and closer into the vendor dev teams and so on, because we start to understand their work. We are able to better lead them. We have actually started a backsourcing program where we hire consultants back to Telia. So, what happens? Teams unite again. And it's a glorious time for Telia. And this actually creates belief in Telia ranks. People are happier. When they measure our happiness with these queries and everything, they are rising because of this. So yeah, I might say that DevOps is saving us. I have a few minutes to wrap this up. I have four items that we need to get into DevOps. We need to understand the anti-fragile vision. We need to have a vision where to go. We need to have ways to go there. I read this book like I read a morning paper. Ooh, lead time. And we need to create business cases in order to convince people to give us resources, money, people, and so on, because alone we cannot do anything. This is an awesome book on that. And, of course, we need someone to do that for us. So, that's my rant about Telia moving into DevOps.